Oh, yeah. New background. Repeated scarf.
What is going on with your audio?
Point hair.
Oh, there we go. Your audio is good now.
Oh, my God.
It's not my fault. Fix your audio.
That whole thing. Of course we don't. We're a Designated Players podcast. We do things the way we want to do it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I don't have the board. I'm back home in the parents' basement recording episode 35 of season 3.
Oh, we got to talk about Bernardeschi too.
We're in the cut the recording, do it over. You're killing me.
Just leave it in. That's our intro.
I'm so tired of you interrupting me when I'm trying to do my work. This is why it's my podcast, and I invite you here every week. When really, I probably should just do this on my own.
Of course, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm not listening to you.
Anyways, we are here. It is the MLS summer transfer window. Massive movement all throughout the league. Some absolutely wild transfers along the likes of Ashley Fletcher returning to Watford, Bobby Shuttleworth retiring, and the most important of all, David the Hat Jensen no longer a part of the New York Red Bulls. Whatever are we going to do without David Jensen's hat? I don't know.
Someone else will have to take it. I hear Ryan Mera's available. Does he like hats, though?
We spent last episode talking about Cucho Hernandez, Gareth Bale, and Matt Miazga rumors. Since then, massive movement all over the league. We'll go ahead and talk about it. We'll start from the most recent, I guess, and then move forward. We'll talk about some transfers out very briefly as well, things that might have gone under the radar. But question for you is, what scarf of the week are you rocking?
Well, before we go to scarf of the week, I am putting the professional in professional podcast and have upgraded to a real mic now.
Wow, look at you.
I know. I
really should have done that before going back to grad school where I had actual money coming in. That would have been a good idea.
Somebody has to be professional on this podcast. Adam had the mic originally. Then we had like a dull period, and now we're back to normal. We're good now.
Yeah, not me. Screw that.
All right, so scarf wise, had to bring out the Chicago one. This is for Gaga. Thank you for giving us the next top goalkeeper in the world for $10 million. An absolute steal. Thank you very much.
Is that what he's rumored for? 10 mil?
10 mil plus add-ons.
That's not a bad price.
No, I mean it's good both ways around. I think it's a good deal for Chicago, and I think it's a good deal for Chelsea.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
So on Sunday night, I will be at the New York Derby with the family, which is also Luis Robles Legends Row induction night. Luis will be inducted into the Legends Row at Red Bull Arena, as he should be, the Iron Man, the greatest of all time. So we've broken out his signature for today's episode. Hopefully he'll be around. Maybe I can get another one right next to it. Just date it differently. But yeah, why don't we jump right back into some movement here. We'll start with Kansas City. Kansas City starting off signing a forward from Israel and a midfielder out of Stuttgart, Eric Tommy and William Agada. Obviously, Sporting KC relatively in the mud right now, really having a tough time in the Western Conference. This move, any move was really needed. But is this the move that they needed to make? What do you think?
I mean, I don't know anything about either of those two, but it can't hurt, right? Like they're sitting bottom of the West. You got to just do something to change it up because the team has not looked strong at all. I mean, the fact that San Jose has looked like a better team than them this season is saying something, and it's not saying something good. That's for sure.
Yeah. So definitely a need, right? The team is minus 16 goal differential, which if I look quickly is the worst in the league. Only 18 goals scored, which is equal to that of Inter Miami and our good friends, the Chicago Fire, because they needed to give teams a head start before getting the Golden Boot race going on for our good friend Kasper Schmeichel. However, that being said, they didn't have a designated player spot to use. You had Pulido and Gotti Kinda both on designated player contracts that are injured for the year. So you look at William Agada, who came in from Israel. Excuse me. I'm going to find him on our... I hate how difficult it is to find players on transfer market. Just let me look up players' names, please. William Agada, the 22-year-old Nigerian coming from Israel. 66 games, 23 goals in that league. Came up through the Israeli system. Again, not so much of a comparison there, but somebody who's scoring a goal every 3 games is not too shabby, especially when you need somebody to put the ball in the back of the net. But the one I'm most interested in is Eric Tommy. Mr. Tommy, a midfielder, more of a winger out of the German system, came up through Augsburg, Stuttgart, Dusseldorf, 96 games, 9 goals, 14 assists. More of a, I think is personally for me, something to allow more freedom for Russell or Shallowy to get involved more. Not a lot of depth at that spot like we've spoken about before. So I think not a terrible assignment there, but they needed to bring somebody in. So I mean, obviously these were 2 big moves, something that needed to be done, and hopefully they can make some impact because they are desperately in need of it.
It's a very SKC type signing. It's like a guy you've never heard of before who has the chance to come in and do, and you know, I guess take the league by surprise, to say the least.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So
for sure. Yeah.
We'll have to keep an eye on it though, because I think they've made good signings recently, like in the last couple of years, but if they can't stay healthy, then they're not going to obviously be able to help the team. So
DC United, moving on, making a flip-flop, sending Eddie Flores, a person we have spoken many times about being just underwhelming after coming in, over to Atlas so that they could sign Chilean winger Martin Rodriguez from Altanyaspor. This is to me, is them dumping so that they can pick up just and start brand new. Eddie Flores came in, did not do the job that was expected of him, for better or for worse. So they go out and get 27-year-old Martin Rodriguez, who, again, spent some time in Turkey, where he had 3 goals and an assist in his only season there. Did spend some time in Chile as well. Most of his time over in Mexico, 9 goals and 16 assists over just about 100 games. Kind of not as impressive of a record as you would think, but it might fit the system better for one new Wayne Rooney as a head coach. What do you think?
I wonder if they made that move with Rooney in mind, or if they made the move and then Rooney was coming in. Because I would think you would want to clear up the space so that Rooney can bring in somebody that he wants in his system. And, you know, I think it's important to back him because we saw what he could do with Derby, and he did some like really impressive stuff with some super limited resources. So now if you can like give him the money and the players to back his system, who's to say that he can't turn DC around very quickly and turn them into a top of the East contender? I mean, there's definitely a lot of work to do. Obviously, seeing as how DC is sitting second from the bottom right now in the East. But I would be curious to know if this was pre-Rooney discussions or post-Rooney discussions. I'm thinking it's pre-Rooney, but in that case, it's going to be interesting to see if this pans out for him, if this was someone he was actually thinking about, or if this is someone he make work in his system, or if this is going to be someone who kind of just doesn't fit in well and then ultimately just shuffles back out, kind of like Eddie Flores did.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, also a Chilean international. He hasn't made a debut in a while, but he was a part of their where did the World Cup go? Lots of World Cup qualifiers, Copa America qualifiers. Hold on. What now?
I was just going to say, I don't know what about those. Can you please
he was a part of Chile's squad early on, 2016, 2017, 2018 type of thing. But hasn't featured since 2018. So not likely that he'll be called back in at this point, but does have some international experience as well. So I think the only thing they can hope for is that he hits off better than Eddie Flores, because Eddie Flores was just a complete bust. And if he can do anything that Eddie Flores could do, then they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about Atlanta and like Barco being a bust, South American Player of the Year PT Martinez being a bust. Eddie Flores was on like a different level of bust. Like Barco and PT had their moments here, and I definitely don't think they lived up to the price tag, but I definitely can't say that they were like bad players. But I feel like Flores for DC was just not a good player. Like looking at his, and I don't know how accurate this is, but one of the stat websites that I've seen, he finished with 3 goals and 7 assists across 3 seasons as like a designated player attacker. That's a big swing and a miss right there.
Sure. I mean, he did come in during COVID, so he had to start with MLS's back. Difficult, not an easy way to transition in. So I don't, obviously can't hold that over him, but yeah, definitely a swing and a miss for sure, I think is a good way to put it. He blew up with Morelia and just never hit the ground running. But that's obviously because he's going from a lesser league to a stronger league. I mean, that's obviously a difficult transition.
Yeah, it's a hard transition.
Yeah, for sure. Why don't we move into one of the many moves of Toronto FC? Obviously, the back line leaking goals, 36 conceded. That is one off of the pace for the worst of the worst right now. So they go out and they sign one of many Italians this year, Domenico Criscito, out of Genoa in the Serie A. Italian national team experience. Also played in Russia, if I remember correctly, as I'm pulling up this thing. 35 years old, center back or left back. He was also a left back for a while. Initial thoughts on the move?
This is going to be like a really offhand like comparison. But if I remember him back from the FIFA days, I remember him being more so of an attacking fullback, which I guess, that's very MLS 4.0 of Toronto to just say, hey, we don't care about playing defense. We just want to attack. That's why they're bringing in Insigne, Bernardeschi, Criscito. They're just going to throw everybody forward and then just say, okay, good luck, Alex Bono, or whoever is in goal. So I'm really not sure about this one. I know they're on the whole like Italian, what do you call it? Like they're just signing every Italian under the in the world at this point. So it doesn't surprise me that they made this move. And I think I remember him being rumored at the start of the season. But I don't know if I really see it changing much for them. I think, yeah, he'll probably add in the attack a little bit more, but I don't think it's fixing the leaking goals problem.
He went in and played 80 minutes for TFC in a 2-2 draw against San Jose. Didn't watch the game. It happened yesterday at the time of recording. Did not get a chance to watch the game, but he made 80 minutes where he was subbed out for Marshall Ruddy. Marshall Ruddy came in. My worry is obviously the age and the pace of the game at this point, right? We've talked about it before, but old center backs, especially old center backs trying to be converted to left back in a league where pace is the most important thing for 99% of players, might go poorly, especially now that you're considering that Carlos Salcedo is not even in the squad. They're starting to move him out and transfer him back to Mexico. So you don't have that help of the experience there. You've got Shane O'Neill, Chris Mavinga, or Luke McNaught. So it's gonna be sketchy for sure. I almost wouldn't be shocked if they went and did a 3-back at this point where he can kind of be that outside center back. But again, same issue, right? The pace that is going to be thrown at him is going to be a little bit, I think, more than he can handle, but remains to be seen, right?
Sure. I think it'll be an interesting comparison to see how he transitions into the league compared to Chiellini, because I feel like they're on very similar platforms coming in, like older Italian coming from Serie A. Let's see how they transition into the league. I know the league's had former like older Italians, I think, because like Nesta played here, right?
Nesta, you had Marco Di Vaio. There's one more I can have off the top of my head, but I'm forgetting.
How was Nesta when he transitioned over? I don't remember because I wasn't following.
He played one season. He was bang average and barely helped Montreal get relevant. If I remember correctly, I also wasn't paying too much attention to CF Montreal in 2012. But
yeah, makes me wonder with the improved attacking play in the league since Nesta was in the league, how this transition will go. It looks like Criscito had a pretty good rating after the first game, but you know, it's one game. I don't want to put too much weight on it. So just got to give it some time and see how it pans out. But it's definitely not a long-term move. It's to try to, win now kind of thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, interesting is the way I'd put it. I didn't realize he was as old as he is. I didn't realize how much time he spent in Russia. The experience might help players like Marshall Ruddy and players like that kind of improve a little bit, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think it fixes many things, especially with Salcedo at the door, but we shall see. Yep. Inter Miami bringing up Corentein Jean from League One's RC Lens, a little time up front or a help up front at this time. Another team that is struggling putting the ball in the back of the net at this point, 18 goals, right? Level with Chicago and Kansas City, who we just said were struggling, mightily. So they bring him in, and he joins the likes of Leo Campagna, who's on loan, will be leaving soon, and Gonzalo Higuain, who has been not featured very heavily. But he comes in. I don't believe he's made an MLS appearance yet. No, he has not. $1.2 million fee. He's a French U21 international, now age 26, has never made an appearance into the first team, but that's because you have guys like Benzema and Mbappé, whoever that guy is, keeping him out. 160 games in Ligue 1, 12 goals, 12 assists, so a goal every 660 minutes. Obviously not a massively strong poacher, but succeeded a little bit better in League 2 or League 2, 58 goals, 17 appearances. Campania seemed to be a pretty good answer, but maybe this is just competition for him. What do you think?
Campania's definitely had a super strong season, and he's, I think, forced Inter Miami to start to question Higuain, even though the entire rest of the league probably already realized that. I want to reserve my thoughts on this one, honestly. I don't know if does he play as more of a winger or is he more of like a striker? Because his numbers don't. Yeah,
he's more of a striker.
His numbers aren't super strong for a striker.
Correct.
He hasn't gotten a lot of starts lately. I think in the last time he got more than 6 starts in a season was 2017, 2018. So it's been a while. I would assume that this is like a TAM deal. I can't imagine this is a DP signing. If that's the case, I mean, I guess take the shot on it. I just feel like with the pull that Inter Miami had when they first were starting up as a club, it seems a little bit underwhelming. I know, obviously, I don't want them to just go sign a big name. Like the way that they have been building the team lately has been very good. I just don't know if the recent results from Jean necessarily make me feel confident that he would transition very well here.
Yeah. Obviously not a massive excuse me, not a massive move in terms of player name or recognition, but like Phil Neville had mentioned, once Chris Henderson came in, it became an actual understanding of player talent and how it fits into a system versus let's just get the biggest names over here. They're not playing FIFA 22 anymore. We're actually going through a process to sign players, which is important, right? We've talked about how it very much feels like they were playing FIFA career mode, right? Just going to sign this player, this player, this player. Roster rules, forget about that, right? But instead, they're out here thinking about who can we sign and where do they fit in. So again, his numbers might not be great, but they might fit a mold. He might fit a mold that'll fit their system, right? I don't think this is a sign and flip deal, but he can revitalize some sort of spark here and become a very good player.
Maybe. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm not too convinced. Also, side note, did you know he's won Ligue 1 before? With Monaco.
Yes.
He was there for one season. I think that was Mbappe's year.
Yeah, and he had 2 appearances. What a legend.
101 minutes. Hey, listen, as long as it gets you a medal at the end of the day.
That's right. I'd be interested to see if they go 2 up top versus just, him versus Campania, play Campania on the wing a little bit. Because they have Vasilev and Robert Taylor who've been playing relatively well. Be interested to see how they fit him in there.
Yeah, especially when they brought in this other guy, transition. No.
It's out of order. I understand where you're going with it, but we have an order here that we're trying to get through.
You and your order.
And it's by time of transfer, not by
who cares about the time of transfer?
I care. I'm a very structured individual. You know this.
Well, then you don't like good transitions.
I don't. Not from you, at least.
Now that it's all ruined, let's talk about...
Speaking about other strikers that are transferred in to MLS from European sides, New England Revolution have just brought in, they labeled a Juventus forward, Giacomo Vrioni, as a designated player. Giacomo Vrioni spent last season in Austria and in the Fiorentina youth system. He was signed from Juve, sent on loan, and then sold. That being said, he had himself a relatively decent year in Austria. He went and put up 17 goals in 25 games in the Austrian Bundesliga, which got numbers not even close to that, got Brendan Aronson a multi-million-dollar move out of Salzburg. He's an Albanian international, has played 6 times for the Albanian national team, who are not in the World Cup this year, but he was a part of their international friendlies. So he played against Georgia, Iceland, Israel, Estonia, none of which he scored in or played relatively any minutes. But I think this is a good look, right? They took that Buxa money and reinvested it into somebody who they can do the same thing with. Take him in young from a team that he hasn't been playing with. Let him go ahead and light the league up if he could. Go ahead, build up his resume and his stock, right? Raise the stock value a little bit. Flip him for double digits on the way out. I think they paid 4-ish mil. Yeah, 3.8 mil. Turn around, sell him for 8. You've doubled your profit. I think this is a good gamble to take on somebody who was very successful in a very similar league level.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think?
I think if I compare this to the last move that we just talked about with Miami, I like this one a lot better on paper, seeing as how he's coming off a super strong season. Where he's been playing a lot of minutes. I mean, 2,000, he's just shy of 2,000 minutes, which is, I think that's more than Sean's like last 5 seasons combined pretty much in terms of minutes, give or take. I think it's pretty close. So I definitely think on paper, it looks pretty strong. My only question is whether or not his time in Austria was just, or his success in Austria was just a part of him being in a system that worked for him, because we've only seen him really play with one team. He had a little bit of time with Venezia when they were in the second division, but his only real success so far has come with the Austrian team. So definitely not saying that he won't be successful here, but curious to see if he isn't successful, maybe it was a factor of he just fit into the system better in Austria. But I still like the move. Go for the guy that's got the hot foot right now. So, and I think you're right. It's a guy you bring in for a couple million, and then if he hits the ground running here, kind of like Buxa did, you just flip him for like low tens, teens area of millions, and you get a nice profit and you do it again. So yeah, I'm on board.
I mean, he took a team that finished 12th in the Austrian Bundesliga the year before and moved them all the way up to 6th after they had been promoted from League 2. So impressive, right? He's done well. And really, again, you can talk about that, but this isn't like he was playing for RB Salzburg or a team like that. I mean, this was a team that total market value is $7.81 million. New England paid Juventus half of that just to buy him, right? So it's not like he's playing with a bunch of world beaters, which is important because now he's going to have players like Carlos Hill, Brandon Bye, Tommy McNamara, players like that are feeding him passes consistently. He's going to get tons of service. I think he'll be very, very good. I think him, Dylan Borrero, and Gustavo Bo are going to combine all together to be very, very successful. So I am a big fan of the move as well. Not a big fan because it'll put them in striking distance of, Red Bull, but I think Red Bull might fall off the wagon anyway, but that's different.
That's another episode.
Sure. Want to talk a quick rumor before we move on?
Yeah.
Jesse Lingard. MLS clubs interested in the Englishman. Tons of potential at age 30, whatever. 29 years old. has left Manchester United. He wasn't in Eric Ten Hag's plans. And now it's saying there are at least two teams looking at him. I believe LAFC was one of them, but I think that they're going to go pursue somebody else. I don't remember what that rumor was, but West Ham and Everton are still interested, but Lingard will be open to this move. What do you think?
I feel like teams are, I know he's 29 years old at this point, which that kind of surprised me a little bit. I didn't realize he was that old. I thought he was maybe like 26, 27, but I think people are sleeping on this one a bit. If you were managed to bring him in, I think that would be massive. I mean, he's 2 seasons off from tearing it up at West Ham. I mean, he looked incredible there. He was one of the better players in the Premier League. If you were to sign any other player who is a better player in the Premier League for a team that finished in the top half of the table, that'd be massive. I can only imagine if LAFC managed to have signed him. I don't know. They may still pull it off. Who knows? That would be the most disgusting team of all time. I think the potential for him to really succeed here is super high. I'm high on this move. I think he's a really good player who's just never really had a good chance in the last few years at United. And when he had his chance at West Ham, he took it and he ran with it and he looked great. So I think if someone picked him up here in MLS, I think he would do really well. I think he'd be a star here.
Yeah. Outside of his potential to play, the marketability is a massive part of that, right? You're looking at a guy who did one dance and was automatically like the face of the internet for weeks. Dude could come in, Millie Rock on one goal that he scores in the year, and ESPN will be talking about it for months. Right, and again, it would never happen because the Euro snobs would be rolling over in their grave. But imagine he comes in here and lights up for 20 goals, 25 goals, golden boot record, whatever. And he gets called into the England team from MLS. Do you imagine something like that? That'd be unreal. Never would.
I don't know if I could see that happening. That's
I'm telling you, I think England as a footballing federation would implode before ever letting an MLS Englishman play in their national team. But be pretty cool to think about.
Yeah, definitely. One last comparison I wanted to make. I don't know if you were moving on, but
no, go ahead.
It's not the most 1-for-1 comparison because I think they're two different players in the way that they play. But Carlos Heel came over from the Premier League as well, where he was not good when he played with Villa. Now you're talking about bringing in Jesse Lingard, who was really good in the Premier League and is still at an age. It's not like you're bringing him over to retire. Like he's still at a prime age. Right. I think he would destroy here if put in the right system, but he would get backed. He would have his chance here. He'd be one of the top players, which I think he would thrive off of. So
it's almost like he would fit really well in a system led by somebody who has played in a similar system as him, perhaps an Englishman who may or may not have just taken over a side that's in need of an attacking midfielder. I don't know.
That could be what they need to save it or to revitalize that team, honestly.
My worry would be that he takes it too much like Douglas Costa, who I don't know if you just saw the update, but Douglas Costa is being called out because his team's getting smacked around in derbies and then he's just going off to vacation and partying like nothing happened, right? My worry is that he comes in and does something like that where, he comes in, he plays a game, whatever the result is what the result is, and then he's out partying in Miami or New York City or wherever he's at, LA or whatever. And that's all that he cares about is the American life. Right. That's obviously a bad look on the league. We've talked about the importance of the people coming in being, what's the word I want to being good spokesman is the word I'd like to use, right? Reflecting well or representing the league well when it comes to them just existing, right? How are you going to, when you come to us, you're going to be a part of our league, you're going to be the face of our league, one of the faces of our league. You need to be able to handle that properly. So that would be my biggest worry with him, is him taking it more for the American lifestyle and less for the league.
Yeah, I think that's totally a fair shout. The one thing I would say, though, is I think Lingard's coming off a stronger, more recent season with West Ham than Douglas Costa was coming in with. He was playing in Brazil before that, where I can't say whether or not he was good, but the seasons prior to that, he was kind of barely playing, not really doing much.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it didn't seem like a good move on the surface. Jesse Lingard, I don't know what it is, but it just feels like it would be a better move than what the Galaxy have got with Douglas Costa right now.
Yeah, no question. No question. Moving on, the team with the joint most goals in the league right now have gone out and signed an Ecuadorian international winger on loan. Washington Corozo has joined Austin on a 6-month loan from Peru. He was with Pumas in the 2021-22 season, playing in both legs of the final as the Sounders won the Champions League. Claudio Reyna brought him in, says that it'd be his dynamic skill set and speed in wide areas will improve the squad, no doubt. Pause. Oh, why? So yeah, started his career in Ecuador, moved around into all these places in Mexico, and now he has made his way to MLS on the highest scoring team in the league right now. What sort of impact do you think he will make at this side?
Hard to say for me, as I don't know a ton about him, but looks like he was pretty successful in Peru, and looks like he was pretty decent in Mexico as well. I can't really see it hurting the team. I can't even say like, oh, Austin should have made a move for defense instead. Is like Austin's just been good on both sides of the ball. I mean, they're scoring really well and they're defending really well in addition. So I can't see any help they bring in hurting them. They're definitely going to need to bolster the roster, I think, if they want to make a play at passing LAFC here. But that is not going to be an easy task because LAFC have really gone out and made their roster stronger. So I think this was a necessary move in order to like keep up with LAFC, seeing as how they're only 2 points behind them right now. I mean, it's not far off. It's felt like LAFC has kind of run away with it, but Austin's right there. So I think it's a necessary signing to make in order to keep up and push for the season, because this team is good enough to challenge. So I think they got to, shoot their shot, go for it this season. So I'm on board with it.
Yeah, you're going to look at this left wing depth now. You're looking at Druisi, Dominguez, Fagundes, Jared Stroud, Red Bull legend, and Washington Corozo. And on the other side, you got Rodney Redes, Ethan Finley, John Gallagher. Right, so you've got players on either side there that are going to be very, very dynamic. And I think what it'll do is you can run somebody out there, especially with the condensed amount of games that they're about to have. Run somebody out there for 60 minutes, just bring on the next guy, super fresh, go attack them. And that changes your 1-1 ties to 2-1 wins, right? It gives you that extra boost. And again, you're right. We don't really need to talk about how strong they've been in the back or how much they need to be in the back, because they've been strong. They've been very, very strong.
Yeah. I
think Valencia has been a good addition. Ring, Daniel Pereira has absolutely stepped into his own this year. They've been good all around. And I think this piece set them above LAFC? I don't think so.
No, probably
just
not.
Don't think so. But does it help keep them within striking distance for when the playoffs come and LAFC trip over their own feet and they can nab one from them? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think so.
I mean,
So very,
they had to make this move in order to even like be in the conversation to keep up with them.
yeah,
In my opinion, at least.
no, for sure. And
This will come back to bite me. Or you could use this soundbite when LAFC ultimately collapse and Austin wins the Supporter Shield.
Yes. Well, Austin wouldn't win the Supporter Shield. Red Bull would. But anyways.
Red Bull's busy being in the mud. Let's let it know.
Excuse me. I can't hear you from that low down the table.
Your rivals are about to pass you in one game, so don't. Let's calm down.
It. Quiet down, you.
They got 2 games in hand. They're 1 point behind you. They're passing.
Yeah,
you.
and they're gonna be 4 points behind us after Sunday.
Shall we move on?
LA Galaxy bringing in midfielder from Serie B side Parma, Gaston Brugman, a team that 5th in the West, relatively even all the way across. Looking for a bit of depth, it seems. It's a very underwhelming signing for a team whose rivals are signing all of these massive players. Pretty much a lifelong Serie B guy. 160 appearances, 19 goals, 18 assists for a defensive midfielder, 90 Serie A appearances. So, he's at age 29, he's got a ton of experience. Has never broken into the Uruguayan national team, but I just can't get a good feel on this one. I'm just for what LA is and what the other LA team was doing, this feels underwhelming.
Yeah, I can't say I disagree with you. One team signing a player who has won multiple Champions Leagues with Real Madrid in the top division of Spain. The other one is signing a midfielder from Real Oviedo in the 2nd division of Spain. So, it's surprising to see as well because the history of LA Galaxy. You know who their all-time players are, the names that they have brought in. And it just seems like nowadays the pull just isn't there anymore. Ever since Zlatan, who's been the big signing since Zlatan? Douglas Costa. I guess Chicharito, right?
It has to be.
That's been hit or miss. Obviously Chicharito's had strong moments. He's had bad moments. But it's I think we're only making this like statement on it though because of what LAFC is doing. Correct.
Like I said, when it comes to LA, you're looking at their center midfield core. You've got Ryan Raveloson. Excuse me. You've got Ryan Raveloson, Carlos Harvey, Marky Delgado, and then you've got Efrain Alvarez, Sasha Kosh, Victor Vasquez. So, you could do a double defensive mid pivot and allow Marky Delgado to kind of be a shuttling 8. There are a few things you can do. I think what is really underwhelming is that their wingers have been poor, to say the least, this year. You're looking at Grancier, Costa, Cabral, all of them just not rewarding the team with the price tag that we put on them. So it would have been cool, especially with LAFC going to get Bale, to go see them get another winger. But you can never be too solid in defensive mid. Now, what type of impact does he make? I think Ryan Raveloson is miles ahead of Gaston Brugman. But obviously, that's something we'll have to wait and see. I can't say that I've watched a ton of Serie B in my days, but just something about it doesn't feel like it's the level of what it should have been for the LA system.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
Okay. Back to some Inter Miami moves.
It's about time.
Transition.
Your transition's like 5 years too late. All right, there's no transition.
Wow. Inter Miami with the move of the century, maybe. Former MLS MVP Alejandro Pozuelo acquired via trade. What did they trade? 150,000 Garber bucks. Plus GAM, plus a sell-on percentage. A sell-on percentage for Alejandro Pozuelo. This is a steal. Am I wrong? Is there anything?
I mean, I think clearly Toronto did it so that they can clear up the space to sign Bernardeschi. I think they must have had to, right? Like, I'm trying to
No,
think.
100%. But you're telling me you couldn't find one other team to get you more than 150,000 Garber bucks and a sell-on fee?
I don't disagree with you. I think that they should have gotten more out of him. I mean, this guy is an MVP. Like, how many years ago? Not that long.
Two.
Yeah, 2 years ago, this guy was an MVP in the league. I know he hasn't really had the same impact in the last 2 years, but it's totally underwhelming. I mean, like Cisniega, who was like a third string goalkeeper on LAFC, almost went for the same amount of money.
Right.
But I at the same time, for Toronto, if you have the chance to bring in Federico Bernardeschi, who is a few years younger than Pozuelo and has the potential to be even better than Pozuelo, I still think you make this move. Like, even if this is your best option, you still make the move. You clear the space, you bring in Bernardeschi, even if it means selling super low on Pozuelo.
Again, I don't disagree, right? At the end of the day, Garber bucks are what they're going to be. You can go ahead, play with the funny money, do whatever you need to do, but it just feels super low.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Does this move with Corentein John as well? Does this move give Inter Miami the boost to get themselves into the playoffs? They're currently in 10th place, sitting 4 points outside of playoff spot. Do you think this gets them into the playoffs this year?
I'm going to say no. I think that
is it because you're a hater?
I think there are a lot of teams around them in the standings that have improved and are going to get stronger. I think Columbus will continue to get healthy and now have Cucho. I think they're going to move up the standings. I think New England's getting stronger and obviously healthier than they were at the start of the season. I think they'll move up the standings. And then Toronto, obviously, they're looking to bring in Bernardeschi. They're going to bring in Insigne. Well, Insigne's already here, but they got guys coming in that are going to help them and push them up the table. Maybe not to the playoff position, but I think there's going to be a lot of tough competition. I definitely think Miami got better. Really love the Pozuelo move. I just don't think it's enough for them to get into the playoffs. I do think there are a couple of teams in the playoff picture right now that I think will drop off and open up some spots for some new teams to slide in there. I just don't think Miami's strong enough to grab one of those spots.
I disagree with you. I think Orlando and Charlotte fall out.
I think Montreal falls out too.
That's a shout. If Jordy goes, I agree.
I think even if Jordy doesn't go.
I think if Jordy goes, I
agree. Look how bad they've looked lately.
Yeah, because who's not playing?
Yeah, Jordy, but he's hurt.
That's my point. Jordy comes back healthy, they stay. If he leaves or stays out forever, they're out. Cincinnati's in because they're to the moon. Columbus with Cucho are in. New England out. Bold take. Miami in.
I think Miami being in is the bold take there.
And I think Toronto missed out by a game because that back line is duty.
That's true. They are really bad in the back.
Yeah.
What do you see in Miami?
7 spot.
What do you see in Miami?
I think they can sneak into a 7 spot. I think they've been playing better than the record that they have.
Have they though?
I think. I'm not going to say
they've been playing better than our expectations. That's
correct.
An absolute given.
Yeah. Well, listen, right. Indiana Vasilev is moving into his own. He's playing much better than he was at the beginning of the year. Robert Taylor's finally getting some time. You've got Corentein John, who can play with Campagna or swap in for Campagna and give them different looks. Pozuelo setting up tons of different players to do their job. Jean Mota and Gregory doing a double pivot behind him. Their back line is obviously the question. I think they're trying to, like I said, you've got Drake Callender. Damian Lowe's been poor. Quinteros, Mbika, Noah Allen and DeAndre Yedlin, Chris McVay sliding into a center back there are lots of different ways they can go about it. If they can find one player to shore up and step up and be like, I'm going to be the man for this back line, I think they're in.
I don't know if they get that, though. It's not like they brought someone in the transfer window that's going to do that for them.
Yeah, but maybe having a Pozuelo there, taking all the pressure off and keeping the ball more often will allow them to defend better. That's just me.
I just think the teams around them have also improved. And I think Miami's been playing. I guess this goes back to what you were saying. I feel like Miami has played above what I think that they're most capable of. I think they're kind of playing at one of their higher levels right now. I just don't know if they can sustain that, especially with teams around them getting stronger and getting healthier. If they get in, that's a hot take. If you pull it off, that's impressive, but I don't think they do it.
Sure. Lorenzo Insigne is in. To counter him on the other side, they are looking at his Italian teammate, Bernardeschi. Currently, their only right mid on roster, Coatsy Thompson, who is playing right back at the moment. And they are using Jacob Schaffelberg or Marshall Ruddy or Jaden Nelson as that wide player on the right. They've been talking about obviously getting him in. Their designated players at the moment, Salcedo and Insigne, looking to get Salcedo out. Obviously, he's having some family issues back home. Is not playing at the level that he probably could have been. You get him out, then you're looking at bringing in Bernardeschi on a designated player spot. And he slides right into that starting 11, him, Insigne with Jesus Jimenez up top. Still missing that playmaker. It'll be an interesting one to see there. I like it. I like the push to get somebody like Bernardeschi in his prime. He wasn't the greatest player in the world the last couple of years, but he did win the Euros. He was a part of the Italian squad that won the Euros. He's in his prime, right? He is a player who is not getting ready to retire. He's not on his way out. He's here to play. And is it because he's going to receive a bag of money? Probably, right? But that's how you have to get players over here, right? So he's without a club right now. He's a free agent. Last time he played was July 1st. So he just became a free agent. Right? So he's 28 years old. This is a massive move for the league. You're looking at a guy who's got 6 goals and 40 appearances for the Italian national team. Again, part of the Euro 2020 side. This is a great move. Absolutely here for it. Juve signed him for 44 mil back in 2017. This is massive. This is a great move, I think.
I was definitely more on board with it until I kind of looked into him a little bit more. And now I'm not saying I'm not excited for it or not saying that it's not a good move, but I'm feeling a little less excited for it. Is he played a decent amount of minutes for Juve. And maybe this comes down to where exactly they played him, but his numbers weren't great there. He's got at most 4 goals in a season for them, at most 3 assists. Most goal contributions he had in a season was 7. And that was in his first year there, where he actually, 7 goal contributions in 847 minutes isn't too bad. But then after that, it was like 5 goal contributions. He had 2 in almost 1,600 minutes. Then he had 2 again. And then this last season, it was 4 goal contributions in about 1,500 minutes. Again, maybe he was playing in like a wing back position or something. I looked on Transfer Market. It seems like he was mostly playing in attacking roles, but I also didn't watch Juve play, so I don't know for sure. I'm taking my foot a little bit off the gas pedal here. I'm a little bit more skeptical.
Because you're boring.
No, I'm not boring. He's obviously a big name, Don't get me wrong. He's coming from Juve, played a number of times in the Italian national team, super recognizable, at least for, people who follow the sport enough. He's not going to get recognized here in the US at all. But I mean, maybe if you're bringing in Insigne, I guess it makes sense to bring him in, have some familiarity, some teammates that can help transition everybody all together. Again, I think you take your shot on it because he's got the name and he most likely has, the talent. But all I'm saying is I'm just taking my foot off the gas a little bit. I also didn't realize that he was 28 at this point. I thought he was a little bit younger. That he was like 26.
Yeah. No, he, like I said, he was up and down at Juve and over there you don't get to do that and keep your spot, right? So he got dropped. But no, they need this spot. They need his position. He's an Italian international who at his time was playing for the European champions. He brings the level of this league up. No question. You put him and Insigne either side of Jesus Jimenez and then go out and use that free DP slot on any number 10 that'll do the job properly. This is you're looking at Toronto versus LAFC for the next 7 years.
I don't know about 7. I don't know about 7 years.
It's an exaggeration. Yes, I know. But you know what I mean. Those two teams plus Seattle are going to set the bar for what it means to be transfer hunters in this league.
Let me ask you, in this case, is there a case to be made that they should have kept Pozuelo and skipped this move?
No shot.
Why? I mean, you're bringing in someone who's only 2 years younger versus a guy that has proven he can be successful in this league, MVP caliber in this league.
Okay, so let me ask you, what did MVP caliber Alejandro Pozuelo get them so far in 19 games?
What, this season?
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it's not all on him. They have no defense.
Listen, they got to go a different direction, right? So in the last 2 seasons, this is now 53 games, 47 points in 53 games with MVP caliber center attack mid Pozuelo. I understand he was hurt a lot last year, whatever. But it clearly isn't working, whether it be the players that he has around him or whatever. It's time to restart and start fresh. So they've sold him off. They're going to send Salcedo out, and they're going to go buy the Italian national team. Great. Let's do it. But it's time for a restart, right? And could he have been successful there with Insigne and Jesus Jimenez and Bernardeschi? Sure. But as you mentioned before, he's 30 years old. He's on the wrong side of 30. Or just about to be
he's on 30. We've had this discussion.
He's about to be on the wrong side of 30, right?
But he's not. He's not.
It's eventually you'd have
so
to
is Bernardeschi. He's about to be on the wrong side of 32.
No, he's not. Stop it.
He's literally 3 years away from it.
Yes, in 3 years, if you want to talk about him being on the wrong side of 30 as he's holding 3 MLS Cups and 2 Supporter Shields, yeah.
Get out of here. He's not winning 3 MLS Cups and 2 Supporter Shield. You're out of your mind. You didn't even have them making the playoffs this season. Now you're going to tell me they're going to win 3 MLS Cups.
Listen, all they got to do is sneak in. I'm just saying. We all know
you don't have them doing. You have Inter Miami sneaking in.
We all know Red Bull are choking in the semifinals of the conference.
Oh, stop
so
it!
They'll have a.
You guys make the playoffs every year. Don't cry me a river. I hope Pozuelo balls out for Inter Miami and shows Toronto they made a mistake.
Listen, I'd be here for it, right? I'd be here for it. Anytime players are playing well, it's all that matters, right? I think this is a great move for the league. I think it takes a guy who is international caliber, great on his day, needs to find a little bit of form. And I can't see him being too much of an issue, not like a Lingard who's going to go in and just live up the American way, right? I can't see that. I think he's a bit more of a professional than that. I'd be very interested to see how he influences this league for the better, right? Can he go ahead and go back and hit up some other players later and be like, hey man, come on over this way. This is where it's at. The money's good. The league is getting better, right? Things like that. But I think this is a good move.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on board with it. Honestly, at the end of the day, it's more talent in the league. I said it before that I said I would get rid of Pozuelo to bring him in. I still think I would do it. I'm just taking my foot off the gas a little bit, you know?
Sure. Okay, we've got two more transfers to talk about, and then maybe a rumor depending on how much time we have, and then we're out. FCC on their way to the moon has stopped and picked up Philadelphia Union forward Sergi Santos. Thoughts on the move initially? I know we had spoken about it. I figured you'd get your 2 cents in.
Yeah, you're not gonna like this one, but I've never been a fan of Sergio Santos.
Listen, the only time I was ever a fan of Sergio Santos was that time when we were playing in the playoffs and he missed 4 sitters in 4 tries.
That's what I feel like his biggest issue is I feel like he always is in great positions to score and then just manages to miss. I don't know. That's just like, I feel like every time I've watched him or like followed what he's done, I feel like that's what I've seen. So that's just kind of like the way I've like, it's just kind of what I've associated with him. So I don't know. You have Brandon Vasquez firing on all cylinders. You have Brenner, who's one of the most expensive players in the league of all time. And do they still have Baji?
Baji, but he's hurt.
Okay. I don't know. Like, what's the mindset in bringing him in to be third string striker?
To be the guy to come off the bench and make an impact. I'm here for it. I think this is a great move. I know you disagree, but that's why we bring you into the bad takes, and I'm here for the real ones. Last year, 6 goals, 3 assists in 1,400 minutes. Year before that, 11 goals, 3 assists in 1,300 minutes. Year before that, 4 goals, 2 assists in 700 minutes, 9 goals, 2 assists in 1,200 minutes in the 3rd division of the Italian League, I think it is. I don't know what that is. Listen, ever since he's gotten here, outside of this year. Okay, so anyways, he's consistently gotten on the score sheet in limited minutes. I think it's a good move for somebody to come off the bench and just make a difference, right? Dominic Baji has not been the guy. We have talked about that. We've talked about that move tons of time. I don't think he's been a journeyman. He's been on 1.5 billion teams. And when I pull up his stats here, 5 goals in 2021, 1 goal in 2020, 6 goals in 2019. He's been hit or miss too, and he's injured right now. He hasn't scored for FCC yet in 1,000 minutes of play. So you needed somebody else to be that third guy. I think this is a good move.
Here's my issue with it. They paid $300,000 in GAM with potential to pay another $625,000 in GAM. Plus, there's a 50% future trade fee for Santos if he gets traded to another MLS team, which I think is unlikely. But you're telling me you couldn't have spent half of that money to go try and get Pozuelo, a former MLS MVP, but instead you're going to spend double the money to go get Sergio Santos? I just feel like for this money, you could have gotten a better, more impactful player. I mean, Inter Miami got him for $150K GAM. Clearly, they had the money to do it. You just throw $200K, you could have had him.
I think he gets in enough good spots that it's worth the gam, right? You saw that he was constantly getting in good spots with playmakers like Lucio Costa setting him up. Now, yeah, it's a lot of money. It's $300K plus a possible $625 and a 50% future trade sell on if he's traded to another MLS club. That's weird. Is it an overpay? Depending on if that turns into $925, but I think $300K is a good gamble for somebody who is 5 to 8 goal scorer a year, gets into very good positions often, can pair up with Brenner, Brazilian link up. I'm about it. I think this is a great move from Chris Albright. Yeah, I can't. This can't hurt you.
Well, except for the fact that they're spending more money, which they have a limited amount in Garber Box. But they're spending it in the wrong area. They need defensive help. They don't need attacking help. They have 30 goals. We're
in MLS 4.0. Nobody cares about defensive help. Just score tons of goals.
You could say that all you want. You could say that all you want while you're sitting outside of the playoff picture. They have conceded 33 goals this season. That is top 5 worst in the Eastern Conference.
Montreal's conceded 35 and they're in 4th. It doesn't matter. Just score a ton of goals.
And Montreal is going to fall off because they don't have Jordy, who's scoring all the goals for them.
You tell them.
They needed defensive help. I don't think
that's where Matt Miazga comes in. We talked about this last week.
But Miazga was just a rumor.
Yeah, until he actually is not.
Okay, but right now he's not.
All right. This is a good move.
We'll just see what happens.
When FC Cincinnati make the playoffs on the back of a Sergi Santos goal against Atlanta United, will you cry happy tears or sad tears?
Sad tears. Come on now.
Good, because that's what I would like to see from you. Our last transfer to round up the craziness that was the first half of the MLS summer transfer window, a blockbuster trade. Anthony Kaye goes to Toronto for Ralph Priso, just over $100 million guaranteed in GAM, an international roster spot, and a first-round super draft pick. First-round super draft picks, by the way, going for $250K, or no, international roster spots going $250K. Super draft pick going $100K, something like that. Something like that.
Yeah. I mean, it could be a good pick with the way Toronto's playing right now.
Yeah, tell me about it.
I think it's next year's.
2023.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be a good pick then.
The most interesting one for me is the Ralph Priso part of this. Ralph Priso valued at about $100 million, I wish. Ralph Priso right about $1 million on transfer market. 19-year-old defensive midfielder, Canadian international, has been called into the Canadian team already. Had a very, very bright future in that group. He does also have a goal in 10 MLS appearances this season. I thought this would be a player that they'd build around as Michael Bradley works his way out. Marco Delgado already sent out. I thought him and Nobel Okello would have been the two that they would have built around. Obviously, and I had tweeted this out earlier, this is a very win now move from TFC, which is not something you see very often in this league that values player development and being a selling league. You don't see a lot of teams going win now, giving up assets and money to get proven players like that. Mainly, I think, because the reward for winning now isn't nearly as nice as developing players like Ralph Priso and sending him on. So that was really interesting to me, and I kind of liked it. I was kind of here for it, right? Move a lot of people around and get some win now players so you can compete in this league. I don't think it changes the landscape of how people do things, but I really did enjoy seeing that, because that's not something you see inter-league, right? Especially in the middle of the season, giving up players like Ralph Priso, right? Maybe in the beginning of the year, like, okay, Paul Arriola, $2 million down, right? Okay, that's an interleague win now move from FC Dallas that cost money. This was a money and assets for a win now player, which is something very rarely seen in the middle of the year. What do you think?
I think this is a risky move. Clearly, Toronto are going for the win now. That's very evident. They got rid of Pozuelo to bring in Bernardeschi. They gave up, in my opinion, a lot to bring in Anthony Kaye. They brought in Domenico Criscito. It was obviously a win now move, considering the fact that he's 35. I think it's risky because a lot of these guys are coming into the system for the first time. Insigne, Bernardeschi, Criscito, Anthony Kaye, even Salcedo's still in his first year here. That is a lot of pieces where you don't know if they're going to click. So if you bring on all this stuff, people have issues with chemistry or adjusting to Bob Bradley's system. It's a risk, in my opinion. It's clearly a risk Toronto's willing to take. I just think that, this isn't an LAFC case where the team was already playing super well, and then you went and brought in Gareth Bale and Chiellini to bolster the team even more. Whereas if they come in and they don't hit the ground running, they're not playing at their best level, it's fine because the team's already playing well. You're probably just going to be fine anyway. But Toronto is not playing well. They're bringing in a ton of new players who are going to have to learn not only the system, but a number of them are going to have to learn the league and the play style in the league. I think it's risky. I think this was a great move from Colorado. I think Toronto had another bad trade here. They're giving up a potential, young star plus $1 million in Garber bucks, plus an international spot, and a super draft pick, which super draft pick probably isn't, that big of a loss, but I just feel like they gave up a lot here. I think it's a risk.
Yeah. So, and I didn't want to dive too far into this, but hell, we're 90 minutes in. Let's keep going. This completely walks back the idea that teams don't care in a league without pro rel if they're not doing well. Toronto FC did not make the playoffs last year, started off slow this year. They then went ahead and say, okay, instead of trying to, build up our young guys, let them get the experience, and then we'll try again next year, sold them on with extra money, brought in a Canadian international center midfielder to fill that role, as well as went out and bought Lorenzo Insigne, Bernardeschi, and sent out some players that weren't doing well. Salcedo, Pozuelo, etc. And they still have a spot to use, which I think there's definitely one more coming. People who will sit there and say, oh, well, there's no pro rel, so there's no drive for teams to get better if they're not doing well. This is a complete opposite of what people think the league is. What I'm hoping is that more teams will focus on something like this, right? You have your teams, the San Jose's, for example, the Chicagos, for example, who now need to use Gasolina money to revamp. The SKCs even, right? And they're injury stricken, so we can talk about that. But you have your teams that are like, okay, we'll try again next year. Toronto said, no way. We are a team that belongs in the playoff race. We are going to go ahead and go full bore for the next 20 games, 15 games, whatever it may be. And we're going to go push for this and try and make the playoffs because that's where we belong. So for people who don't look at the league and say, oh, well, they have no idea, they have no desire, they have no drive to get better if they're losing because there's no relegation. What are they afraid of? Not necessarily about the fear anymore. It's about teams wanting to be known for what they're known for. Toronto being a team in the top 4 of the East consistently. Will they get there this year? Probably not. But they need to be in the playoff race because that's what Toronto FC need to be. I like the move, and I hope other teams feed off of that and take that to heart and kind of act the way that they are. And that'll just push our league forward, right? Teams that fold into that mindset of, we've got next year, are the ones that'll hold us back. There are teams that at the halfway point need to be spenders, and that's what this is from Toronto. I like this a lot.
It's a good point to bring up. I think you definitely don't want your San Jose's, or I can't even say RSL because they are like third in the West right now, which is just ridiculous. But you got, let's just say your San Jose's, who are just kind of like, you almost have to say complacent with just finishing bottom of the West at this point, seeing as how they just do it like every year. So I think it's a good point that, I think that they should go for it. Obviously, it does improve the team. It's great to see them bringing in more talent into the league. That only helps the league grow overall. I'm just looking at it from a Toronto perspective rather than just an MLS perspective. I think Anthony Kaye is a good player. But let me just say, from my experience as a Knicks fan, selling the ship to bring in a win now opportunity when you don't know if they're going to click well together is risky. And it could have repercussions later on down the line. You could see more Chris Armas-esque seasons if you are selling the farm to win now with a team that you don't know if they can win or not. So yeah, it depends on, honestly, I think it just depends on how, as a fan, how you look at what you would want to see out of Toronto. Like, would you want to see them bring in these big names and develop some of their young guys around them? Or would you rather them sell all the young guys and risk it all, go for it all right now? I think it'll probably vary fan by fan, but it's certainly exciting. You can't say that if you're in Toronto, you got to be excited by what they're doing. Again, it's risky, but it's exciting for sure. More exciting than sitting 12th right now.
Facts. So, yeah, I think that'll do it. Those are all the biggest transfers from the first half of, or the first beginning part of the MLS summer transfer window. If you enjoyed it or enjoyed our little, this is kind of a last minute, let's just get together and talk transfers, talk our thoughts here. If you like that, give us a like, give us a follow. Make sure you follow us anywhere you get your podcasts, when we go live. Anywhere on social media, give us a follow. We're posting clips and tweets and Instagrams all over the place. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Just search the Designated Players Podcast. You'll go ahead and find us. Other than that, thank you for joining us for season 3, episode 35. We'll catch you at episode 36. See ya.